So I've seen a lot of hype going on about UFC 300, which is going to take place in the spring of 2024. And I have the perfect card for UFC 300. But before I show you the card, I just want to rant a little bit about why Conor McGregor should not be the main event for UFC 300. I know there's this idea that there's no bigger fight than Conor McGregor, UFC 300. No, I don't want to see it. All right, old washed up Conor, it ain't cutting it. I've come up with something that's 10 times better, and I'll tell you why. Okay, why would you not want Conor McGregor main eventing UFC 300? We know it's a massive hyped up card that the UFC and Dana White's been talking about for the past year. The fans are already getting excited about it. You know, we're talking about holding people back and not having them fight at all for like 6, 7, 8 months to make sure they're on UFC 300. I don't think you should do that either. Okay, you want Conor McGregor to fight on his own card because he's such a massive name that regardless of how understacked the card is, it'll probably sell over 1 million pay-per-views. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but Conor McGregor and Cowboy Cerrone was one of the worst cards ever outside of the main event. The co-main event was like Holly Holm. You know what I mean? There was like Maurice Green and Alexei Olenek as a feature fight. It was a horrible, horrible card, but it sold over 1 million pay-per-views. Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler can sell itself. Maybe you can do Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera as a co-main event to that. That will 100% sell over 1 million. There's going to be so much hype generated around Conor. Why would you put him on UFC 300 when the UFC knows that that in and of itself is a big deal and you need to stack that? You may as have 2 massive pay-per-views back-to-back that are going to blow up rather than just one. Okay, so this is kind of my idea. I think that the UFC should have Conor McGregor fighting on 299, Conor McGregor fighting on 298. Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera, they haven't fought since what, August? And the reason why I don't want to have O'Malley on UFC 300 again is because if he's ready to fight in December, he's been telling us, I'm ready to fight in December. I know it's not going to happen now because 296 is already basically like pretty much complete. But if he's ready to fight sooner and Cheeto's ready to fight sooner, O'Malley has the makings of a guy that might not be that active as the champion. I can't see him being like a fighter like Izzy that fights 3 times a year or 4 times a year. I don't see that happening. If this is the opportunity where we're going to get to see a very active O'Malley, please, let's just have that happen. Why hold him back? There are other massive fights that you can make for UFC 300 that you don't need O'Malley for. Why would you save him? This guy's telling us, I want to stay active. Give him the reward of letting him stay active. You know what I mean? Let's have big fights. The UFC's been rolling out a lot of good cards for us lately. Let's keep that going. Maybe you could do O'Malley as his own main event for UFC 298 or make him a co-main event under Conor McGregor. At least there will be one big title fight on the Conor card. That's going to sell over 1 million, and my card's going to sell over 1 million too. So let's check out the best UFC 300 card that has all the makings of a massive card that you guys are going to get absolutely hyped for. And I believe it's perfect. Let's get into it. This is what I'm talking about for UFC 300. Main event, Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall, heavyweight vacant title on the line. John Jones is retired. Let's have 2 heavyweights. Main event UFC 300. Let's do it the right way. That's a big fight. A big fight, literally, okay? Physically, these fucking heavyweights that are going to go at it, this is the best heavyweight fight you can make. And of course, it's just a title fight on the line. It makes sense. UFC 300 should be grandiose. It should be a big card. You need a heavyweight title fight on it. And I think that John Jones is going to leave the sport. And what better fight to make than this one? Co-main event is even bigger. And the feature fight is even bigger, but that's all good because UFC 200 was headlined by Amanda Nunes, okay? You don't necessarily need the main event to be the biggest names, okay? It just needs to be a really big title fight. Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev as a co-main event, okay? The feature fight, Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. Now, of course, we're assuming Khamzat Chimaev's going to get past Paulo Costa. I think that the UFC is going to give him a title shot over someone like Dricus du Plessis because let's be honest with ourselves. Even though Dricus du Plessis, based on merit, absolutely deserves it, he beat Robert Whittaker. If you are beating Robert Whittaker in 2023, you deserve a title shot 100%. But you have to think about it and you have to mix in business into the equation. without Israel Adesanya in the picture, Dricus du Plessis, he doesn't have the same pop. He doesn't have the same star power. They're going to look at Khamzat Chimaev and his finish over Paulo Costa, which will probably happen, and they're probably going to want to make that fight. It's just a massive fight. They don't love the fact that Sean Strickland's champ either, so they probably want to give him a bit of a tough matchup. And they want Izzy Adesanya, okay? They want him to get another title shot as soon as possible. You know how the UFC is. They're always bowing down to Izzy. So this is the best thing in between. You know, you're pulling Dricus back, but you're giving him a promised idea that if he beats Izzy, he gets a title shot 100%. 100%. Fuck it, make a contract and make sure they stick to it. And for Izzy, let's make him fight one more time, and let's have Izzy actually get up for something. Let's have Izzy come back to a fight that he really, really is going to be motivated for, Dricus du Plessis. And imagine the press conference. Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis, all the buildup, all the tension, and Khamzat Chimaev's in the same room. And Sean Strickland is in the same room. You already know that Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich are not going to be trash talking. No one gives a fuck about what they have to say at the press conference. That's why we need some of this drama going on. A crazy man Chimaev, Sean Strickland, they're going to have some respect for each other. Let's get Izzy in the room. And guess what? You know what's going to add more fuel to the fire? Kamaru Usman. Let's bring him to the press conference too. Let's have him right next to Dricus du Plessis. Or right next to Izzy. Kamaru Usman, we've heard him talk about Dricus du Plessis. We've heard him said, bro, I used to know you. How are you out here saying this stuff? Let's have him enter the building. We don't need Usman's opponent to be a big trash talker. That's why we're going to have Usman fight Jack Della Maddalena. Because I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to be really active. And I think he's going to get another win before UFC 300. And I think that by the time you could make Kamaru Usman come back, Jack Della Maddalena will be in the top 8, top 7. And I think he's going to be a really big name by that time. And this is just a really good matchup. JDM, Kamaru Usman. I could see Kamaru Usman wanting to sit out until UFC 300. I could see him wanting to be on a card with Israel Adesanya. And I could see him maybe wanting to get on the stage with Dricus du Plessis to talk some smack. Again, it's not only Usman and Dricus and Izzy. What about Khamzat? Remember all the back and forth Usman and Khamzat had? Khamzat was talking about how he was going to run through Usman. There would be so much to talk about. Usman fought Sean Strickland back in the day too. I mean, these 3 middle fights, Strickland, Khamzat, Izzy, Dricus du Plessis, Usman, Jack Della Maddalena, there's going to be so much chirping going on between these guys on stage. And again, the main event is one of the best fights you could ever make, and we don't really give a fuck about what these guys have to say at a press conference. You're going to let all the middleweights go to work at the presser. And the opener of this card is going to be a bantamweight fight between Song Yadong and Umar Nurmagomedov. Once again, Song Yadong is a guy that's going to be fighting Petr Yan in China. It's rumored to be a main event for the China fight night that's coming up in December. Song Yadong, if he loses to Petr Yan, okay, then I could see them doing Petr Yan in a number 1 contenders fight. So Song Yadong could fight Umar Nurmagomedov, who's coming off of an injury that is going to not want to be thrown to the Wolves number 1 contender, but is going to really need a tough fight. Like, you can't have him against Corey Sandhagen. He pulls out and then put him up against someone outside of the top 10. Like, he needs a big bump up. You know what I mean? If you're going to stay consistent. Song Yadong would be coming off of a loss. You could do Petr Yan too. Whoever loses the fight between Song Yadong and Petr Yan, whoever loses that, I'd love to see fight Umar Nurmagomedov on this card as well. Because again, if Umar can win that fight, then he can fight in a number 1 contenders fight. And if he wins that, he can fight for the title. Same thing can be said for someone like Song Yadong. Song Yadong wins this matchup, then he goes to a number 1 contenders fight. If he wins that, he gets the title. So again, 100% it sells over 1 million pay-per-views, and this could be right after a Conor card. You know what I mean? Song Yadong, Umar Nurmagomedov, Kamaru Usman, Jack Della Maddalena, Izzy and Dricus du Plessis. You're going to have to incentivize Izzy to come back in a non-title fight. This is the way to do it. Put him on a Sean Strickland card. I know that Sean Strickland might get in his head. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with that. I understand, but he's going to have Dricus du Plessis on his mind. He's going to be focused on du Plessis. And I don't think that Sean Strickland's really going to go at Izzy that much in the press conference. I think he's just going to be a little bit more chill this time around. And maybe he'll go at Khamzat a little bit, but who knows? I think that Khamzat's going to be chirping back and forth with all these guys. And then Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall to cap it all off. Just the best hardcore fight on the card. Again, like, you could talk about Strickland and Khamzat being a good matchup. You could talk about Adesanya and du Plessis being a good matchup. All these fights are amazing fights when they're actually going to play out. The main event, we just care about the fight, and it's as good as you can get for a heavyweight title fight. Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall. Take my money, UFC. If you make this happen, you will sell over 1 million pay-per-views, and you don't need Conor. O'Malley, as I said, he gets lost on this card. Imagine O'Malley as a feature fight. Like, listen, man, I don't want a WMMA title fight on this. I don't want a flyweight title fight as a co-main event. Fuck that. These are massive fights. They're all amazing fights. The press conference, the buildup would be amazing. It'd be hectic. Again, Izzy, Duplessis going at each other. Khamzat Chimaev in the mix. Weight cutting. You know what I mean? Weight cutting. Khamzat's going to be fucking pissed off. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's going to be clowning Kamaru Usman. You know, Sean Strickland's going to be going back and forth with Izzy every now and then. Izzy's going to be going back and forth with Drick. It's just going to be an amazing press conference. And then, of course, two of the other really good fights, these guys aren't going to talk shit. Let's have them to open up the card and to end it. To Aspinall Pavlovich, big heavyweight title fight. Song Yadong, Umar Nurmagomedov. That's a UFC 300 card that I can get behind. Again, Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. Dude, it's just not perfect for UFC 300. It's not a title fight. It's a washed up old man Conor and a 38-year-old Michael Chandler. All right, I know it's an exciting fight, but come on, man. Just have that be its own circus event. I don't think it's wise to have all your eggs in one basket. Let's spread it out a little bit. You know what I mean? UFC 300, they don't need to make sure that's the only one. Let's only have UFC 300 be a massive card. No, you can have a massive Conor card. Conor cards are always going to be massive no matter what. All right? Sean O'Malley, he's just not a fucking mega fight feel. You know what I mean? The drums start rolling. You can hear the drums when Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall are walking out. You know what I mean? You can hear the war sounds when Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev are on stage. Sean O'Malley enters the building. Fucking hell, you can hear a fucking pin drop. Straight up, dude. He just doesn't bring the same mega feeling. Megalodon, UFC 300, Brock Lesnar. Just picture Joe Rogan saying, dun, dun, dun. You know what I mean? With Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, John Jones, Daniel Cormier. These are the guys we want for UFC 200. All right? These are the fights I want for UFC 300. Not Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. Like, that's a good fight. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing fight, but that's not UFC 300 big. And if it is a good fight, you don't want Sean O'Malley to get buried underneath all of these other guys because he can get lost in the mix. He kind of needs to be his own thing. The UFC needs to buff him up a little bit because naturally he doesn't have that same kind of charisma. He doesn't demand attention outside of the cage. In the cage he does, but outside of the cage, kind of gets lost. And then Conor McGregor, that's going to sell over 1 million pay-per-views no matter what. So let's have O'Malley, Chito underneath Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler and do whatever the fuck you want for the rest of that card. Okay? I just feel like if the UFC is going to make a Conor card for UFC 300, they're going to do Conor, O'Malley as a co-main event, and then like the feature fight is going to be a good fight, and then there's going to be like a WMMA fight, and then there's going to be like a fucking random-ass flyweight fight that's not even that relevant. Like, I just don't see them absolutely stacking a Conor card that much. And again, if they put Conor on UFC 300, they're never going to give us a card like this. We should incentivize the UFC not to have Conor on that card so that we can make sure that they make UFC 300 massive, okay? You know what I mean when I say Conor McGregor. It's not the same as seeing all these title fights, as seeing these number one contenders fights, all right? Like, again, it's hype and all that, but Conor ain't the same guy. This ain't UFC 229, Conor Habib. This ain't even Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, bro. Like, it's just two older, washed-up guys, and Conor has a massive name, so it's kind of its own thing. But this is what I want for UFC 300. Let's make this happen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, I feel like this would be the perfect card. I feel like it'd be absolutely perfect. What is up, guys? It's Lucas Tracy MMA here, and I want to let you guys know that I have something for you, and that's a real food cookbook. Because if you're walking around looking like Chris Dawkins, you got to get that weight off. I don't know if you think you're DC or something, but most people usually don't perform at their best when they're walking around with 30% body fat. So if you're trying to lean out and you still want to eat good, tasty comfort foods, well, you could check out my Real Food Cookbook because I've made it a purpose to have good, tasty foods that you can still eat just without all the processed bullshit, without all the processed ingredients like soy and seed oils. So guys, check out the Real Food Cookbook. Use code MMA for 30% off. The link is in my description. Don't forget that discount.